All right, people, get excited. Today we're going to talk about stem changing verbs. So first we're going to talk about what we've learned so far. And we've talked about Spanish verbs being made up of two parts. The first part being the ending, either AR, ER, or IR. And then the stem, which is what's left after you take off the ending. Regular verbs are really easy to work with, so all you have to do, once you take off the ending, you add the appropriate conjugation. For AR verbs, we're talking about o, as, a, amos, ais, an. For ER verbs, we're talking about o, es, e, emos, eis, en. And for IR verbs, we're talking about o, es, e, imos, is, en. Continuing on with what we've learned so far, we've talked about irregular verbs. These are verbs that do not follow the same rules as most other verbs. Some of the most commonly used irregular verbs are ser, estar, and ir. Some other irregulars are yogo verbs, and we've talked about those quite a bit, like salir, tener, venir, decir, and poner. And these are verbs that in the yo form end in a go. One easy way to remember these is if you remember back to when we learned about irregular to commands, we learned a phrase, right? Vendi sal as ten ve ponce, or Vin Diesel as ten ve ponce, right? So there's a picture of Vin Diesel for you. Stem changing verbs, which is what our focus is on today. There's three types that we're going to talk about. First type is E to IE stem changing verbs. These are verbs like empezar, querer, perder, preferir, despertarse, sentirse, cerrar, mentir, pensar, entender, comenzar, and divertirse. Okay, if you look at these verbs, you see a bold red E. This signifies that that E is the E that would stem change from E to IE when you conjugate the verb. The next type of verb we're going to talk about is O or U to UE stem changing verbs. Some examples of those would be devolver, volar, costar, acostarse, almorzar, encontrar, recordar, volver, dormir, jugar, which is the only U to UE stem changing verb you need to worry about now, en poder, and contar. Just like before, it's important to remember that the bold red O's or U's are the vowels that change to a UE when you conjugate these words. Okay, the next set we're going to talk about is E to I stem changing verbs like pedir, reír, sonreír, servir, seguir, vestirse, and repetir. So look for the bold red E, and that is the vowel that stem changes from E to I. Really important here to remember is that you should write these down for class so that way you remember which ones you are responsible for. Another note that I'd like to mention is that these are verbs that do not stem change in the nosotros and vosotros forms. How do you stem change a verb? Let's take the verb jugar. It's a U to UE stem changing verb. It's a verb you should be super comfortable with since Spanish 1. So the first step, we're going to start with the stem. If you remember, that's just taking off the AR. So we have jug. Then the next step would be to drop the U. Then our third step is to add the UE. So we have jueg. Keep in mind that verbs do not stem change in the nosotros and vosotros forms. So then what? after you're done stem changing, you're going to add the appropriate conjugation. And it's just like regular verbs that I mentioned earlier. So for AR verbs, we have o, as, a, amos, ais, an. For ER verbs, o, es, e, hemos, is, en. And for IR verbs, o, es, e, imos, is, en. So let's look at an example, and we'll keep with the jugar theme. We have yo juego, tú juegas, él, ella, usted juega, nosotros jugamos, vosotros jugáis, and ellos, ellas, ustedes juegan. If you take a look at this, you'll see that if we shade in the boxes of the verbs that stem change, it looks like a boot. So sometimes we call these stem changing verbs boot verbs. So an easy way to remember this would be that I fit in a boot, you fit in a boot, he fits in the boot, she fits in a boot, we do not fit in a boot, you all do not fit in a boot, but they all do fit in a boot. So you might take a look at this lady whose family all fits in a boot. See? Just don't judge her. Don't forget, you're responsible for all the stem changing verbs I mentioned in this presentation. Write them down. Big hint. Stem changing verbs do not stem change in the nosotros and vosotros forms. Another key thing to absolutely remember.